Hello, hello, hello. Gregory Zuniga from Wicked Elf Miniatures with Cyber Wars and the Digital Hobby Night. If you watched our previous black video, you probably guessed the next video is going to be white, and you would be right, especially with the paints on the screen. So just like our black, different paints and different whites have different properties to them. So just like we did with the black video, I'm going to switch over to a card just to make it a little bit easier for the white balance. So here are several of the whites that I actually have out already. Maggot white, which is a Reaper color, Linen white, which is a Reaper color, Peppermint white, which is a Reaper miniature color, but it is a seasonal around the holidays. Foundation white, which is Vallejo. Art white, which is a scale 75 tube style paint, more of a thicker acrylic. And then khaki highlight, which is a Reaper color. We're going to be talking about this one in particular because this can behave like a white depending on what it's near and what's around it. Which is an important thing for all these different colors is white is really dependent on what color you have around it. You can have a toned white next to other colors and still register white. It's why that t-shirt you thought was pretty white in the store and then you took it outside has a color to it because it depends on what environment's around it. So as you can see with the maggot white and the linen white, they have some tonality to the white, where the maggot white is a blue white or a cool white, where the linen white is a warm white. Peppermint, foundation, and art white are pretty much true whites, which I tend not to use a lot of in my painting, mostly because once you reach up to that level, it's really hard to use it white in other areas without making a very strong point. A lot of times I see these true whites for doing non-metallic metals, which is an important feature. The khaki highlight is a great base color for white, which is important in the factor that we also need to shade our white appropriately. And just like with black, we want to try and favor the highlight with white now and try to control the shadow, which is going to help to register it as white even though we're using a particular color. So let's come back to some of the camera and some example models at this point. So this is the Kingdom Death Priestess that we used in the previous one. You can see the white elements to her. And it makes a nice strong contrast with the black that you see. Something that might have a little bit more different is this one with this blue-black and the white elements into that. So here we have some non-metallic metal, we have the white boots, but everything seems to blend well together because we haven't gone too far. And this isn't painted with a true white, this is keeping more into that linen white and maggot white stages. So what we're going to paint tonight is this paladin. I already started with my first layer to it. Unfortunately, when I primed it out, it went a little slick, so I had to do a little coating to it. And you never primer do that if you just put a thin coat of paint to it at first. You're not looking to stick, but it's going to help to make some tooth to the model, which is going to help your future paint stick. What we're going to use for the first coating of it tonight is we're going to use a linen white khaki highlight combo. So we're going to use these as a 50-50 mix. And you can see where the khaki white and the linen white are going to mix well with each other. And like before, we're just looking for a nice even coating. If you need to put multiple layers, that's okay. And don't worry about being particularly clean at this stage. You can always go back and fix up edging, especially when we're starting way in the beginning of the model like this. What you do want to be sure is make sure you don't hit any layers that are drying, because that's going to cause the paint to tear. It's going to make a lot more work for you. Just coming through, seeing as many spaces as I can. It's a little wet back there, so we're going to let that dry thoroughly. This is where when I'm not recording, I will often have a hair dryer plugged in. The little mini travel one is actually great for making speed up your drying of your paints. Just put it to a low setting and hit the miniature fairly quickly. Saves you a lot of time in the speeding of paint. So for sake of time, I'm going to actually pause out here, and through the magic of recording, we're actually going to have this as a comeback as a dry figure. Okay, welcome back. Probably was just a moment for you guys, a little more longer for me. So I went and hit it with a hair dryer just to speed up the process for it. So as you can see, we have a nice even coat at this point in time. So I'm not going to go too much further than here. What we're going to do is we're going to start getting the shadow in now. What I'm actually going to use is just that khaki highlight. I'm not too worried about the name because of the khaki name, but it's going to be a nice color for actually us to highlight our shadow into colors. So coming back in, just going to grab a bit of that color. Nice and thin, we're going to come back into the shadow zones. So underneath the fold, it's going to be better for you guys to see it. Underneath the fold into here. And all these different folds and structures that we have in here. Now I started off with that towards our mid-tone and coming back and shadow it because it gives me an idea of how far I'm going to need to push my color in order to make it, or how many shadows I'm going to need to put in to make these wrinkles and folds feel right. If I get a little too much for the shadow, I'm starting to shift away from my color, or starting to get a dirty feel to my white. I know I have to pull back the shadow a little bit. And since I'm doing that shadow now and painting it in, I get a little more control over it if I was just washing it. This full in here, back into here. So if you like this figure, let me know in the comments. If we get enough people interested into it, I'll probably will finish it off and bring it to our next real show for HMGS. I know it's a year with no shows, but donate into the Toys for Tots category. And if someone wants a young knight or a paladin for their RPG games, it'd be something that could be auctioned off if people are interested enough. Heck, if you just want a piece to actually have on your shelf to see what we did as far as this digital paint night went. I'm just going to do my edge out these edges because they're going to fall over it. I'll probably come back and edge it with a darker color, but just make sure as I get all the parts in, I gotta come back and back off and use a real color when I do the metal. But if I miss anything now, it's a little hard to come back onto that cloak and cape and just try and get that portion of things. And you can be as generous or as tight as you want with the shadow. It depends on how much time you want to spend playing with it. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with that half and half color. I'm going to clean up areas where I think the shadow went too far. And while it's wet, with a damp brush, I would just rinse my brush, damp it off with my cloth. I can come back through and just help to smooth that out. I'll focus just a little bit for you guys. That's a little bit better. Okay, so now, taking that original half and half mix, I'm grabbing some of it and setting it aside. I'm grabbing some more linen white, I'm adding that to the mix. So now think of it as 1/3 of the khaki highlight and 2/3 linen white. We're going to have to build up the graduation of colors a little slower. And we're not going to overwhelm everything. I'm just going to come back through and we're going to grab all those higher points. Taking special love and affection for any of the bigger, broader folds. Remember, they're going to have a bigger highlight to them just if they're bigger and broader. Now when you're doing white, sometimes it's going to be a hard time getting some coverage. Don't worry about it. Worst comes to worst, you have to come back and add another layer to it, just like you did with the base coat. So don't sweat it too much and don't push it too hard. If you're trying to slap that paint on, it's going to get really thick really fast. So even when you're doing layers, if you're doing something like a delicate color like white, it's sometimes worthwhile to come in with 2 or 3 more layers and build it on up versus just trying to put it on hard and fast. And this nice warm white is going to look really good if we do it as a non-metallic metal armor. So that's something to keep in mind if we're going to do the figure in the future, is I could definitely do a blue-gray armor. That's going to look even more, make the white pop even more, because now we're going to have this dark metal color next to it. By treating white as a color, we can actually use it to actually emphasize our figure. So if you have a soldier that actually has a white, but they have a cool uniform, by actually using a warmer white, you can actually get a better pop off that figure and just make it feel more impressive on the tabletop. Okay, so everything's pretty much blocked in well at this point in time. I hope you can see them building up okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in, and now we're actually going to grab the Linen White Pure. And again, we're just going to come back and we're just going to tighten up the areas that we're covering. So a little bit of a smaller area each time. And the highlight always goes towards the side where your light source is coming from. In this case, we're using a zenithal light, so it's actually going to be coming from above the model. Now when it comes to white, you want to be a little more generous on the highlight side of things, because remember the shadow is the minimum portion of white. But in a few minutes we're going to come back through with the glaze and try and tie this all back together to tighten it up a bit. Don't be stressing about making the point of your brush do all the work. Don't forget to use the side of it as well, especially if you have an area that you have a little more coverage at. The whole part of the bristles of the tool, not just the tip. So this one time, if you're like me, you're going to have a little bit of brush strokes start to show up. You're going to have a little bit of some rough spots coming into it. So we're actually going to glaze the whole figure. And we're actually going to glaze it with that color that we just used prior, which is the 1/3 khaki color and 2/3 linen white color. It's going to help to tie everything back together again. And when I say we're going to do a glaze, I don't want it too thick of a paint. You want enough that when it comes down, it lays down and doesn't run into the cracks and crevices in the heavy way. So that's just going to kind of cover and coat the surface. What I do a lot of that is I wet down the paint and then tap it to my paper towel. And that pulls off the excess water to it, and it's going to lay it down better. So I show most of you like painting with a watercolor where you're just kind of leaving a layer behind. When I say we're going to get all surfaces with that, I mean all surfaces, making sure you get the shadows as well, but not so much that it's going to flood into those areas and become a wash on you. What this is going to do, act like a filter on the lens and help to push all the colors back towards each other. It's going to help to blend everything a bit better. In areas where we already have this color at, it's going to stay pretty much the same. But in areas where it's darker, it's going to actually push those colors higher. In areas where we're lighter, it's going to push them into shadow a bit. So we're just going to take everything and try to push them together as far as range goes. So when we do this, we're actually going to lose our highest highlight at this point in time. So what we're going to actually want to do is we're actually going to want to try and push them back together again, or push our extremeness back up. So let's see, let's just do a little quick fix here. Oop. Sorry guys, a little too far. There we go. Oop. Okay. So we're going to grab our linen white again. Nice and thin. We're just going to try them back and come back and grab some of these higher spots. And just make the white pop again. Now we have this nice creamy kind of ivory kind of color. That's a really good white. But if we want to try and push that a little bit further, what we can do is we can actually grab a truer white and mix that with our linen white. And that true white's going to take over that color pretty quickly, so a little goes a long way. Be careful about that portion of things. We can come back in and highlight even more. Now if you do this, it's going to take a little bit of the cool or warmth out of your color and leave it into the shadow areas, which may or may not be the thing that you're going for. Now, if you're enjoying Cyberworks, make sure you drop a like and a thank you to Todd Presley and Dennis Jensen. They're a lot of the two guys who spent a lot of time getting everything arranged. My understanding is a lot of this came back and came together very quickly. So they did a lot of work in very little hustle time. So greatly appreciated, guys. My understanding is that fall event is canceled as well, so this is something we would like to see for another event, such as a Cyber Fallen. Make sure you let them know, and that way they can get the message back to the HMGS board so they can support other efforts like this. Okay, guys. So, nice warm white. Now, a cooler white would actually have a feeling of more blue tone to it, or even a purple tone to it. And that could be very cool for a winter character, a Viking, someone who's got a very warm uniform with lots of red colors to it, and it creates a great pop. That way you can use the white to make a cool warm contrast as well. And the same thing can be done if a person has a very cold uniform. So it's very dark blue, a very bluish green. If you have a particular fantasy figure with kind of those colors, doing the opposite in your warm colors or your blacks or your whites can create more of a pop and contrast to it, and that actually will make your white look more white or your black look more black, because you immediately want to try and compare the two colors together. So I'm going to register black as a color. Also, having that color in the shadows helps to make it look more realistic, where if it's just a pure white, it's actually something we really don't find too often in nature. As you can remember for that card before, that white color just blended into a piece of paper, and really do we not see things that white a lot of the times. To get paper that color, we actually spend a lot of time bleaching it. So, okay guys, if you have any questions, I'll be around. I'll be checking the forums for comments. I also will be teaching a online stream, looking either Friday or Saturday, possibly both. Come down, join, paint with us. If you have any questions, please feel free to join. And I'll see you soon. Bye.